Hey y'all! Well, today we're going to start a new journey on the channel, which I hope you guys were going to enjoy. And I know for quite a while, 5 years or so, we've really been focused on the electronics side of audio. And while we're still going to be doing that kind of stuff, we got this preamp here we're working on and repairing, and we're going to be working into some push-pull amps. We just did those LE Kit KT88, KT170 things that still got to test and stuff. But I've kind of got sidetracked trying to get my room and my sound back where I'm happy with it. And for years, I've been using a really kind of strange setup where I had my system set up in my bay window on one wall of this living area with a couch kind of at 90 degrees to it that I'd lay down and listen to. That was honestly like the speakers are here and I'm on the couch over here to the right side of the right speaker, and somehow the speakers being in that window created like this wall of sound effect. And I think that the windows behind the speakers were doing kind of like that band shell kind of effect where the sound was just coming out into the room. I mean, I know some viewers look at this and they're like, that's the absolute worst setup I've ever seen. You'd have to hear it. Several people have been to my house and heard this setup and were like, I can't believe how good that sounds. And I just didn't mess with it. But after going and listening to some really well set up rooms that had nice treatment done to them, and they weren't even what I would call ideal spaces, I realized that there's a difference in having like a wall of sound that can sound three-dimensional and actually getting the imaging and the whole holographic sound experience reproduced. And so that's the direction I decided to head in. And for you folks that are following the channel along, have seen some pictures and updates of some changes I've done to the room. And at first it was kind of heading in a good direction, and then all of a sudden it just got totally derailed. And I know some of y'all commented about this, and maybe I'm just hard-headed and have to learn things the hard way, but it was starting to sound pretty good, like I was just saying, and then it just went downhill quick, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I think I've discovered what I did wrong, and again, I'm still going to be building my new listening room, dedicated building out in my backyard. It's going to be convertible to an ADU in the future kind of stuff, but mainly I want to create a really nice listening room, and then I want to move all of this stuff, this workbench, this parts shelving, everything out of my house. It's just really taken over my non-stereo life, being just parts and boxes and stuff everywhere inside my house, and that's got to end too. So it's going to serve two purposes, and I can move all my YouTube recording, production, editing, everything out there, and then I can separate my work life and my personal time, which right now they're too commingled, and it's hard for me to keep them separated. And honestly, it's hard for me to keep track of how much time that I should be spending on, working on projects and working on my channel and all that kind of stuff, because it's all in the same space. And I know if I'm out in the other building, I'm at work, come in here, I'm at home, kind of a thing. And I can figure out how many hours a week I want to do that. So anyway, that's how I plan on organizing my personal life by doing that. But we've gotten way off track. Let's go back to what we're doing with my listening room in this house. And I need to get it back where I can start being able to critically listen to gear that I'm working on. Like, I don't even want to hook up those Kit amps until I get this room sorted out. So the first thing I did was I changed the speakers. And that was probably the first mistake. I assumed that since I really loved these little quad S2 bookshelf speakers, that I would also love the quad S5 floor stander speakers. And I guess I kind of heard some really nice floor stander speakers at these audio shows and just thought this has got to be a better path to go. So that was the number one mistake, is I changed two things at the same time. I rearranged the room and I changed the speakers. And I should know from back when I used to work on race teams and stuff, you never change two things at the same time. So that was mistake number one. The second mistake was sitting in this space and thinking, oh wow, here's this big blank space on the wall. This would be a good room to also have it as a combination home theater and 2D listening space. So, had pictures hanging on the wall when I first listened to the speakers, and it sounded pretty good, but I wasn't really happy with it. I never thought, let's put my Quad S2s on some stands and listen to them set up like this. Should have done that, but I didn't. Next thing, put this giant, like 85-inch TV on the wall between the two speakers. And that, again, I believe now is a mistake. And some of y'all commented about how that really gives kind of a glare, just harshness to the sound, and I really think that's what's happening. And I don't think having a blank wall there is good either. I'm probably going to have to do something, whether it's putting some, canvas pictures on the wall, or putting some drapes or curtains up there or something, or get some other kind of sound treatment. Might need to put some acoustic panels up there. I'm not sure what is going to be the trick there. The TV's got to go. That can't be part of this room. And the other huge failure that I did, and I noticed this the first time I played music with these in the room, but I didn't want to admit it because I just spent $2,500 buying them, was those big home theater seating chairs with high backs. And I didn't really think through what putting something like right behind your head and blocking the sound, when you put your head up against it, would do to the audio. And it just killed the sound. And then instead of having this three-dimensional sound from the room, the soundstage just went totally flat. And so the first thing I did was I moved those big theater chairs over to the side and just set up a folding chair in front of the speakers where those chairs were. And it was like night and day how much better it sounds. And it's almost too kind of buzzy in the room now, and I think that's because there needs to be something there, not just a folding chair, because now it's bouncing off the back walls, and there's, like I said, there's no room treatment in this room. And there's a bunch of doors and stuff behind those chairs, the seating area, which is why I'm wanting to build this other room. But anyway, I am about 4 or 5 feet off from the back wall, so there is that. So anyway, I realized that those home theater chairs aren't going to work. And here's what the room looked like after I thought I was finished with it, and I was so disappointed in the way it sounded. So we got the home theater seats stored in the basement. And the plan is, after I get my stereo building completed out in the backyard, that we can put the big TV back on the wall, put the home theater chairs in here, get those wall mount speakers sorted out and then connect them to the AV sound system and turn that into like a home theater space for relaxing. So, no, not money wasted, but just we kind of parked that. And we're going to take the big screen TV and park it down in my downstairs room too. And so, getting rid of the TV, getting rid of the home theater seating. The next thing I tried was I got some little cheap Amazon speaker stands, which I know that's not ideal either, but put those quad S2s on the stands instead of the S5 floor standers. And I'm almost thinking that those S5s may not be the best speakers on the planet. And there's something I feel like that's going on when you have an array of speakers vertically in one of those tower things where the center of the sound is coming from different places instead of being, because there's that whole thing about the coaxial speakers, right? Like Kef and these other people, and like those fine audio speakers that I really liked. Like the Quad S2s better, but those fine speakers were really nice too. And I'm wondering if you have the sounds all coming from different elements vertically displaced from each other, and it's a three-way speaker, are we giving up something? And so these Quad S2s, also the upper segment that has the smaller mid-range driver or the mid-woofer and then the tweeter, they're in the same space, but that's a ported cabinet. And on the S5s, they have those same two drivers, but they're in a sealed cabinet. And I just wonder if somehow the magic was lost when they converted it to this taller floor stander, which is kind of what Americans want. Did they realize, hey, in the U.S. market, people aren't going to buy these little bookshelf speakers. They're not going to believe they sound this big. And so we got to make some big speakers so people will buy them. I don't know. But honestly, the bass that I'm getting out of the little S2s sounds better than what I heard out of the S5s. And so, yeah, I need to get all that sorted out. And honestly, I don't have the TV off the wall yet. I got to get one of my neighbors to come over. I got a blanket over it right now, but I want to get that off the wall, and then I want to A/B the two speakers, but I've got to get something comfortable to sit on in that room, and that provides some absorption between the speakers and the back wall. So went to the furniture store today, and I hope it's still there tomorrow, because I'm going to buy it if it is. They had this, I don't even know what you call it. It's almost like a love seat, but it's a giant-like chair. There's a single cushion for the bottom and the back. So you can sit either in the center or you can sit on either side. And what I'm planning on doing is getting this with the matching ottoman, so I've got something to put my feet up on, so it's a really comfortable place to, spend hours listening to music. And then I'm going to have the center of this love seat thing, or big chair, I don't know what you call it. It's kind of a weird piece of furniture, but I'm going to center it and have that be the, sweet spot, the center between the two speakers, so that when I'm at home alone, I just sit in the middle and I get the best seat, they say. And then if somebody comes over, or if I get two people in the room, then we can each sit just slightly off center so we're not way out of the sweet spot. And it should be a good compromise between, sounding good for both people, but being perfect for a one-person listening environment. And like I said, it's super comfortable. Looks like it's really well made. I think it's going to be a nice size, and it's going to provide some absorption where that leather thing, those theater seats made out of leather, there was no absorption. This should give a little bit of absorption and have the pillows and stuff in there with the ottoman. I think that's going to help the room acoustics. So I want to get that in the room, and then we're going to A/B the 2 different speakers. And if you guys have some recommendations on some nice speaker stands for those Quad S2s, these were just like some $40 ones off Amazon. I'll put a link to them below so you can see what they are. It does show you can fill them up with sand. I don't know if that's worth trying, or should I just pony up and get some really nice stands for these speakers to be able to have stands for not only these speakers, but I've got a bunch of speakers I want to play with. I've got those Deckware. There's some 945. I'll put the number up here. I haven't wanted to review those. People have asked me to review them. And I feel like that putting them in that bay window, they were not happy. And so I didn't even want to criticize the speakers until I put them in a real place. If I get this room sorted out where those S2s sound good and maybe those, F500 fine audio speakers sound really good, then, and I've got those DIY 2.1s that I know are nice sounding speakers. So if all those sound good, then we'll do a review on those Deckware speakers and see what I think of those. And again, it may still be that this room is a problem and isn't great, and I may kind of hold off on doing some of these speaker reviews until I get this other room done. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on, was somebody made a comment that they didn't think that I should be reviewing gear if I'm selling gear. And I feel like that, some of the things that I've kind of stayed away from is doing reviews on phono stages, because I build one that I think is a fantastic one, and I have sent people to Darlington Labs if they're more interested in a solid state one, or maybe they have a harder to drive amplifier that I don't think my tube amp is a good solution for. But there's not a whole lot of phono stages that I've been really impressed with the way they sound, and so I've kind of stayed away from that. But, and obviously I feel like that I can review these little, AYAMA Class D amps and stuff because they're not my competition. And something like those LE kits that I just built, I don't have anything like that, and I would never be competing at that price point. I mean, if I built some KT88 mono amps like that, they wouldn't be anywhere near that price. And the same thing like with the ST70. I have no problem telling people, you got $1,500, go buy an ST70. That's the best bang for $1,500 that you're going to get in tube audio, I think. And so, that said, the main thing I want to be able to do is review the other stuff around the amplifier, like the speakers. And right now, I don't feel like that, and I've said this in some speaker reviews. I did a review, maybe, I can't even remember, but I reviewed a pair of speakers that I even said, these things are too big for my room and the way I'm set up. And, when I did kind of put them out in the room, I could hear they had potential, but, the room's not really set up for them. I want to not have to say that. I want to be able to say, here are some speakers in a really well-treated listening environment, and I can critically review this stuff. And I think that's going to have value to people that are interested in any of this tube gear that I've been doing. Or, you got to have a way to play them. And without being able to recommend speakers to use with the amplifiers that either I build or you build from my open source schematics and everything, I think that's a disservice to the community. I've also wanted to play around with some open baffle speakers, and I wanted to play around, maybe with some of those Klipsch horns. And I had some Klipsch chorus speakers that turns out there were some issues with, but they just overpowered the room. And I want to have a room that's big enough to be able to play around with speakers like that and not feel like the room is crippling the speaker. If that makes sense. And I apologize, I really haven't dug into many projects this year, done a lot of video content, but I've gotten so sidetracked with this other thing of room acoustics and trying to understand by going to these audio shows and talking to other people and really trying to gain some insight into the other aspects and just getting outside of the schematic. Because I feel like I've been so tunnel focused on that I'm not seeing the whole system. And I think to be able to teach that to you guys or explain that to you guys, I need a better understanding of it myself. I'm also partnering with a design firm that does their audiotitions, they're engineers that know sound and can calculate all this stuff and figure out how to build the perfect room. Or maybe not the perfect room, but the perfect room considering my budget. Let's put it that way. Obviously, if I had like $500,000, they could build an even nicer, the perfect room's going to be more than I've got to spend. But within my budget constraints, build as good a room as I can and maybe show you guys like, hey, this is what you need to take into consideration when you're setting up a listening room, and it will apply to anybody that's into this 2-channel audio stuff, that we can all figure out like where we're making compromises and where we can fix things. And that's my goal for the rest of this summer, at least, is trying to get all of that stuff sorted out. Also talked to somebody about working on developing a lower cost streaming solution. And this guy used to work with communications tech, IT guy that was in the communications field that understands what streaming is all about. And I think that's going to be another cool thing that we're going to be, or a collaboration we're going to be adding to the channel. And hope that gets going here soon. As you can see, poor Dolly's really struggling. Her arthritis has gotten really bad, and I've been having to give her pain meds and stuff. And at one point, I was almost thinking she was going to have to get put down. But she's, as you can see, she has to think about every little step pretty seriously. But I think she's about 16 years old. So I'm kind of lucky she's still around. And I mean, I'm not getting too emotional, but the thought of losing her was been kind of painful too. But she's getting better. And so, y'all keep Dolly in your prayers, and that she hangs around at least for another year or two. And, I'm not going to let her suffer, but as long as she seems to be enjoying life, I'm going to keep her around. And I know y'all like seeing her. So anyway, been kind of a long video, kind of a convoluted thing. I don't even know what I want to make the title of this video, but I want to start here's the path of building my new audio building, and do a whole video series from start to finish on what that entails. And it's going to start with a survey, coming out and surveying the property next month. And I know that's kind of very different from, doing DIY tube audio, but it was interesting. The acoustical engineers I talked to today was talking about, he read a book back in the 70s where somebody was saying that they could like mimic what was going on in a room with electrical circuits, and that it's all the same kind of math. And I thought that was kind of neat. But hey, I don't know. Hopefully I can learn enough about this stuff to kind of explain it to you and see what this partnership works like with this engineering firm. We haven't nailed down. They came back with a pretty high price for their first kind of estimate, which was kind of shocking. But today we had like a Google call and said, here's kind of what I got to spend. Let me know what you can work, can you work with that? Is that enough money for you to be able to do kind of the basic things? Because I really feel like I don't want to spend 20% of this budget, designing things and not have enough money to actually build the project. But then I also think it would be foolish to just go into this blind and build something and then it doesn't sound good, and somebody like these engineers look at it on the tail end and go, oh yeah, that room size is wrong. You got the ratios all wrong, or the ceiling's 2 feet too low. That's never going to sound good. So I think that would be a huge mistake too. And yeah, I don't want to do that. So there's got to be a balancing point there, and I'm trying to figure that out. So anyway, hope you're enjoying this and are going to enjoy this ride, because this is going to be a big ride. And I never thought that I would end up going down this pathway, but I feel like that this is kind of where I'm at in my journey, and I need to fix the room. So we're going to start with trying to improve this room upstairs for now in the short term, so I've got some place to listen and to evaluate gear. It's still kind of work on different projects like this get this little preamp fixed, see what it sounds like, and listen to those Ellie Kit amps and do tube rolling and get all that stuff done. But I got to get the room fixed first, where it's back to a good baseline. And I think I'm headed in the right direction on that. So again, suggestions for speaker stands, put them in the comments, or like what I need to look for. Whether wood or metal, or single post or 4 legs, or what are the advantages. If any of y'all know about that kind of stuff, to put it in the comments. And yeah, we're gonna get there, guys. So anyway, thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for supporting the channel, for watching my videos and all that stuff. Thanks to you Patreon supporters, people that make donations to the channels, buy my gear, other ways of supporting what we're doing here at Skunky Designs. And yeah, when we get the room done, we'll have a big party over here and y'all will be invited. So till then, have a great day.